Mercedes was expected to re-enter the F1 Championship competition and resume its pursuit of victory in every race in 2023. But instead, they are a step down on where they were at 2022. Not only are Red Bull miles ahead, Aston Martin seems to have made a car which is able to beat the W14 by raw pace. Mercedes is taking advantage of this period of pause in the Formula 1 calendar to push hard with development work ahead of the debut of its evolved W14 at Imola next month. And it's revealed on what sort of concept change the Brackley-based squad are potentially moving towards. Want to find out more about the concept change Mercedes is making? Then stick around for the rest of the video. Mercedes scored its first podium of 2023 at Australia, with Lewis Hamilton finishing P2 after managing to get through a chaotic Grand Prix at Albert Park. Of course, you have to keep in mind that the Australian track is not a super representative track, as there are many different types of races ahead of us in this season's racing calendar. By looking at the data we have, it is clear that the RB19 is the fastest car on the grid, with Aston Martin being the second fastest car. Even though Mercedes outpaced the Aston of Fernando Alonso during qualifying at Australia, Lewis Hamilton did admit that the MR23 was a bit more racy than the W14. Aston Martin clearly has taken some inspiration from Red Bull, and to be exact, it's not a green Red Bull. Yes, the side pods resemble the Red Bull design. But Aston's designers have taken some ideas from the F1-75 as well, if you consider the scalloping top of the side pods. And they must have taken some inspiration from Mercedes as well when designing the rear of the car, as the MR23 has the drag trait the W13 had. The W14 though is faster on a straight line, being only 2 to 3 km per hour slower than the RB19. It's a different case with DRS, as we all know that the W14's aerodynamics is not efficient as the RB19 when the DRS is activated. With the Chinese Grand Prix being cancelled due to COVID-19 regulations within China, the teams have acquired a 4-week Easter break. This is unlike the summer break, where the factories must be closed down and no work upon car development should take place. During the Easter break, all teams are on full throttle, working on their respective cars to close the gap to the front runners. Mercedes is utilizing this break in the Formula 1 schedule to intensify its development efforts in preparation for the debut of its upgraded W14 at Imola next month. Given that team president Toto Wolff has often emphasized that the present design concept of the car will be overturned with revisions, it is no secret that significant change is on the way for the W14. I don't want to change the goals yet. I always want to think that we are here to fight for a world championship, even if it doesn't seem realistic. We are only at the beginning, and I want to keep the team motivated to do the best possible job. There are many innovations in the pipeline. The layout of the car will change at Imola, and we will see what this step entails. After viewing the W14's limited potential in pre-season testing, the narrow sidepods concept has been categorically rejected. The team's desire to reverse course and essentially start again is expressed in a clear and forthright manner. Wolff's patience has run out, and the engineering team led by Mike Elliott will feel pressure and even a little bit of an ultimatum because they insisted on sticking with an aerodynamic philosophy that didn't work in 2022. The current W14 has undergone some significant changes from the previous W13, including some of the aerodynamic improvements we've seen on the Red Bull. However, the performance hasn't improved as much as was anticipated. In fact, the gap with the leader has widened. Ferrari has never stated that it plans to change its design philosophy, despite Carlos Sainz's suggestion that it should. Wolff and Mercedes have been open about how the advantages they gained in 2022 over a Red Bull team that had stopped working on its car tricked them into sticking with a concept they now see as a failure. The necessary parts are already in the wind tunnel, so it's time to start fresh. Wolff is also frustrated because Aston Martin, a Mercedes client team that purchases from it certain mechanical components, is currently more competitive. Elliott cannot allow the W14-B project to fail as well. While it could be tempting for any team to try to copy and paste the Red Bull right now, Mercedes should instead turn to Aston Martin given the shared components already in place and the positive results its customer is experiencing. Porpoising, which was not anticipated in the simulations and which caused significant issues in the first part of the season, was the main reason of the W13's problems. The floor and tires couldn't function because it was also present in corners and a setup window that was too small. When the proper configuration was used in free practice last year, the car found fantastic downforce, which the two drivers frequently couldn't explain how the car managed to be awful at the outset during certain race weekends. On the 2023 W14, this still occurs to some level, and it has even been observed in Australia. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell were able to line up behind Max Verstappen in qualifying because the Mercedes was utilized during the proper time frame. However, this still occurs far too frequently, and it frequently depends on outside variables. For instance, the increase in temperature over the Australian weekend gave Mercedes tires an extra boost of traction. Therefore, unlike with Ferrari, The issue is not primarily one of erroneous aerodynamic theory. Because the modeling data and the track did not correlate, Mercedes was at a significant disadvantage. Although the ramifications for the side impact structure mean that might not be able to happen right away, Wolff's statements suggest that Mercedes' plan will have more conventional side pods. However, given that Aston Martin shares so many internal parts with Mercedes, Mercedes should take note of what it has accomplished with its own sidepod concept update for 2023. Mercedes improved their straight line speed right away from 2022 thanks to the new rear wing that was unveiled at the opening race in Bahrain. Using the new family of rear wings, 2022 Mercedes dryback may now be decreased, which was a definite drawback. It is no accident that Aston Martin, a vehicle with a rear end that more closely resembles the 2022 Mercedes W13, is one of the vehicles with the highest drag. But when the Mercedes and Aston Martin cars' strengths are combined, the potential is obvious. Last year, Elliott and Andrew Chauvelin frequently stated that the simulations for the narrow sidepod project were far faster than they had anticipated. On the track, however, this was not the case, and the car's inflexible setup and porpoising caused it to lose downforce. A too-stiff suspension setup had to be used if the car was raised even a small amount off the ground. The big thing is we've got rid of the bouncing, so we're able to run the car where we want to, he told Sky Sports F1. It's much smoother than what we had last year. The side pods are a similar theme, but if you go and copy someone else, you go backwards before you go forwards. The big focus for us was really just trying to add performance and get rid of that bouncing. With the W14, this issue has been partially resolved, but with the new model, the goal is to be able to run even closer to the road. Mercedes requires a complete redesign of the side pods as well as a new approach for the design to function. The mechanical setup and use of new rear suspension, which should be delivered along with aerodynamic upgrades from Imola, will be the key sources of this improvement. Even before the Bahrain Grand Prix, the Imola adjustments were already underway, suggesting that this may be the first step of a multi-phase process. The budget cap, which prohibits significant spending on rushing through expensive update programs, is what keeps Mercedes and all the other teams chasing Red Bull from outpacing Red Bull. Mercedes won't be able to do miracles this year, but it did it last year when it had remarkable recovery skills. The objective is to beat Ferrari and, in particular, its customer team Aston Martin, to the finish line. Its first step must be to take note of the things that customer got right. But will Mercedes be able to achieve this goal? Which direction do you think the Silver Arrows will take with its Imola package? Is it going to be the Red Bull way? Is it going to be Aston Martin's way? Or are Mercedes going to bring something unique to the table once again? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section down below. We'd love to discuss it with you. And on your way down, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to get notified of our future uploads to keep yourselves up to date about the 2023 Formula 1 season.